Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, National Treasury has come to the rescue of municipalities struggling to settle their ballooning Eskom bills. In his mid-term budget policy statement yesterday, Finance Minister Thina announced plans to write off over 56 billion rand owed to Eskom by municipalities. Municipalities, though, will have to comply with a set of conditions outlined by Treasury to gain access to the bailout. So is this a good move by Treasury? For more insight, we are joined by Dr. Thina Nzo, a local government specialist at the Public Affairs Institute. Doc, thank you so much for your time. This, of course, is outlined in the Eskom debt relief bill that was introduced earlier this year. It was only until March that these municipalities could actually apply for this reprieve. It's going to be written off within 3 years. Just explain to us how this will benefit municipalities and, in turn, their customers, municipal customers, you and I.
Good afternoon to the viewers, and thank you for having me this afternoon. Well, firstly, what I can say is that this bill has actually taken a very long time for it to pass, because the issues related with municipalities owing, billions of rands in debts has been coming a very long way. I mean, for the past 6 to 7 years, we've been seeing that municipalities have been accumulating, Eskom debts in relation to households not being able to pay for their electricity services. Now, this comes from the backdrop that, Masego, we have to relate it to issues that have to do with the economy, the failing of our economy, the shedding of jobs, households not being able to have disposable income, and to a large extent where Pari even noted that, there is a relationship between poverty, and the inability for communities to afford electricity. Communities have to, weigh their options of either having, a basket of food on the table or buy electricity. And most communities would actually opt for, making sure that they put food on the table. So this is a plethora of these issues that are society, related with the economy, with poverty, and also in relation to the ability of municipalities not being able to raise their own revenue. So yes, it is quite good that the National Treasury finally adopted the bill, which will relieve municipalities from the Eskom debts that they have to service and having to compromise on their operational budgets to deliver services.
So about 67 municipalities, according to what we heard from the Finance Minister yesterday, applied through this bill. And I think he said about 36 or so have been given the go-ahead in terms of being part of this. But also the conditions that are in that bill that the Finance Minister said would have to be followed. For instance, enforcing strict credit controls, enhanced revenue collection. I mean, can we trust as South Africans that all members of SALGA will be able to do this? We know that already how we find ourselves here is the mismanagement of these very conditions that have been listed in the bill.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very tricky one because, for example, we've got, differentiated, geographic and economic, capacities of municipalities. Yeah. Like, for example, most of these municipalities that were also enlisted on not being able, to pay off their Eskom debts were peri-urban and rural municipalities. Those are municipalities that do not have, viable, economies that can actually help those communities, to pay for their electricity bills. And they have no source of income as well when it comes to other businesses, investing into those municipalities. So it's going to be a very difficult one. I mean, for example, Maluti-Apofong is one of those municipalities that have struggled with Eskom, repayment debts. We even have cities of Joburg, for example, which also has struggled as well with revenue generation. They have struggled with non-payment of communities in Soweto. But of course, you have to take into account that there are some, control systems that are related to the way in which these debts are collected, which are not efficiently, used in municipalities. So it's going to be a very tricky one. It's going to be a difficult one, but we'll have to see how that pans out and the kind of capacity that National Treasury is also going to put on the table to assist municipalities to bring in stricter control system, to better their operational debt control systems and also the revenue generation aspect to it.
How important is it? I mean, he also tabled another bill yesterday, the Eskom Debt Relief Amendment Bill. This, of course, has to do with that bailout, that 254 billion rand bailout that Eskom was granted by government earlier this year. They're supposed to pay back with interest, to the real runners of this country, as it should be, the taxpayer. How important is it that they, bring this amendment bill into law? It doesn't take as long as the one that you and I have been discussing, as you said earlier. It took too long for it to actually pass. How important is it that this one is passed and that it's enforced correctly?
This one is very much important because remember, Eskom has got a historical, debt that has been looming and growing over the years. And this has also had a negative effect, or should I say a snowball effect in the way in which Eskom was supposed to actually, generate its own capacity, to provide extra, electricity that is needed, in the grid. And currently, right now, if we do not manage, that kind of, situation, then Eskom will not be able to provide the necessary services that we need, as the citizens, as the taxpayers in this country.
And hopefully municipalities that are granted this, reprieve or the writing off of their debt in the next 3 years are able to manage the money properly, right, Doc, so that they can actually give communities the other services that they haven't been able to, because of servicing the Eskom debt.
Absolutely. And another point which I would also like to mention when I was listening, to the minister's budget adjustment is that there isn't much referral to providing municipalities, with grants, particularly grants that can assist municipalities to upgrade their electricity infrastructure. That is one of the biggest problems that we are faced with. I mean, we are looking at decentralizing the IPPs, the independent power producers, so that municipalities can generate their own electricity, and also make sure that we do not pay high tariffs for electricity. But again, you need proper infrastructure for that, source of energy to be put into the grid. And currently, our municipalities have got dilapidating infrastructure. I mean, other cities are faced, for example, like in Ekurhuleni, they're faced with power outages, which are linked to, transformers burning out and not coping, with the kind of electricity demand. So we also need to pay attention in terms of allocating money for infrastructure repairs and infrastructure upgrading when it comes to electricity.
Dr. Thina Nzo is a local government specialist at the Public Affairs Institute. Thank you so much, Doc, for your time here and your expertise. Now, efficient